Hey guys, welcome back to Brian's Mysteries and Adventures on Trail. And today we are going to be talking about the disappearance of Esther Dingley, who disappeared very recently in November of 2020, so roughly a little over a month ago. Esther is 37 years old and she is from Great Britain. And the story has sort of some twists and turns in it, but Esther was a very active and very outdoorsy type person. She loved the outdoors, she loved hiking, camping, all that kind of stuff. And she had been traveling around Europe with her partner, Dan Colgate, for the last 6 years. So in late 2013, the pair was looking for a new start. Mr. Colgate started working as an administrative worker at Newcastle University, while Miss Dingley worked as a personal trainer, and they had both been diagnosed with depression. A wedding was arranged for February 2014, but at Christmas the year before, Mr. Colgate required surgery, and the pair decided to call off the wedding and set off for a new life of traveling. And this is how they began their 2014 venture in the van life. Having both been diagnosed with depression, I think this was an awesome idea, and they just were having a great time, traveling around Europe, taking pictures, posting them on Facebook, taking side ventures here and there, and just looks like they're having a wonderful time. And although they were traveling together for all this time, they didn't always do every single hike or adventure together. Sometimes one would just stay in the van and rest up while the other went off on, a couple-day hike or something like that. So last year, Mr. Colgate arranged for them to stay at this remote farmhouse in the Pyrenees village of Durham, which they decided to return when lockdown began earlier this year. But at the end of October, Miss Dingley decided to set off on a lone hike. On November 15th, she parked their camp van in the village of Benasque. That's actually how part of this story unfolds, because the hike that Esther was taking in the Pyrenees Mountains on the border of France and Spain, she was doing this hike alone. Her partner, Dan Colgate, was not going with her on this hike. So at roughly about 10:30 a.m. on Saturday, November 21st, Miss Dingley set up off the mountain path from a spot known as Plan d'Estonie, and it was basically the last place that she was seen alive in the Pyrenees Mountains, which is near this village of Benasque. Mr. Colgate, her partner, is not considered a suspect, just so you guys know. That he has been interviewed by the police more than 3 times and has been very cooperative. Captain Jean-Marc Bourdino, who is leading the investigation into Miss Dingley's disappearance, told the press that officers are unable, unfortunately at this time, to rule out the theory of a voluntary disappearance, which we'll get into more later. But their theory based on that is that Esther wanted to continue with her current way of life, journeys in the camp, van, sporting activities, etc., where Dan was kind of at the point where he wanted the nomadic life to come to an end. So that's sort of their reasoning behind that theory. Although personally, that theory to me is just pretty ridiculous. So in any event, the two of them traveled for about 5 miles together until around 10:30 a.m. on that Saturday, November 21st, and she set up the mountain path, which I'll picture here, in the Pyrenees. And her planned route, which I'm going to put a picture in, it's kind of hard to see, but when she got to the top, she took this picture, she sent it to him, her partner Dan, and everything was good. She was in good spirits, but as she was coming down, Esther was met up with this guy named Antonio Ballerin, who actually gave her a ride to another spot in the area. Before Mr. Ballerin dropped Esther off at the trail which led up to the Pic de Sauvegarde, she had told Mr. Ballerin that she was thinking of heading over to the French Pyrenees, and mentioned to him the town of Bagnères-du-Lochon, which this was not part of her original plan, so this is where some of the discrepancies start to begin. Now, the couple had parked their camper near the town near Benasque, and she was seen on video surveillance on November 19th in a store where she was trying to buy some chia seeds, and there was a lady in the store who translated for her because the chia seeds were only on sale for people that had this sort of discount card and she didn't have one. Anyway, an English teacher who was in the store actually obviously remembered this when she saw the missing posters and contacted the police, and that's how the police were able to obtain this footage. So at first the investigation was going nowhere, but then thankfully Mr. Ballin, the guy who met up with her on the way down, was able to contact the police, and so that gave them some more information as well as getting this CCTV feed. And another interesting piece of information is a woman walking her dog said that she walked by the camper and she noticed a light on inside. And at this point, Mr. Colgate was not staying at the camper, he was staying somewhere else. And the woman again walked her dog again, and she said that she saw someone lying down there there. So she reported that to the police. And of course, so this started this whole both renewed hope that she, is just living there, but then also this, negative speculation that, oh, it's just all been a fraud and that she's been sleeping in the van. This happened on December 2nd, which was 10 days after she vanished, as when the dog walker saw this. Now, of course, the Spanish police, that they dismissed the sighting and said that it was actually somebody in their own unit that was just doing some late night investigating and was in an unmarked car. So who knows really what that was about. But unfortunately, it was one of those things where it caused both at first positive and then just negative backlash and nothing positive towards the case. Of course, once Mr. Colgate reported her missing, both the Spanish rescue brigade and the French authorities got immediately involved in the search and were working off of all theories. They obviously interviewed Mr. Colgate several times, but considered him just not a suspect. And Sergeant Jorge Lopez, the head of the Mountain Rescue Brigade, said unfortunately Arctic weather conditions made further expedition up into the mountains useless. He told the press that there have been heavy snows, which I'll put some pictures up, and made basically searching impossible, which is unbelievable how that kind of seems to always happen in cases like this. And actually, unfortunately, with two different countries having this investigation ongoing, the Spanish investigators believe that Esther most likely suffered some sort of accident in the mountains, whereas the French authorities across the border believe that's not probable, and they fear her disappearance is either a result of a voluntary act or the result of someone else's actions. French gendarme Captain Jean-Marc Bourdonnais said it's not probable that Esther suffered an accident, and I don't know why they think that. That's what he said. He went on to further comment that Esther and Danielle's lives were not as happy as the images posted on social media suggested. His comments came after officials interviewed Mrs. Dingley's partner for a third time. 4 officers from the French Gendarme Parliamentary Force spoke to Colgate at the farmhouse in Gascogne that he's been house sitting in during all this time. And I can't imagine what he's going through. I mean, he seems like such a nice guy, and he's been so helpful to the authorities, and just all this speculation. I mean, it's just heartbreaking what he must be going through. Because during his questioning with the authorities, of course, the authorities have gone through all their Facebooks and all their messaging. And so, of course, a couple that's been traveling for 6 years together in a van, it's not always going to be peaches and cream. And there's going to be some, arguments, maybe some things like that. And it's just, I just can't imagine, not only just missing your partner, but having to go through this investigation. Now, of course, the authorities have maintained that he is not a suspect, but at the same time, they're also insinuating that, she purposely disappeared, and after all this time, she didn't want to give up the van life. And whereas apparently Mr. Colgate was leaning more towards, settling down. They had been traveling and doing this van life and these expeditions around Europe for 6 years. And so apparently that was sort of a disagreement they were having. But I mean, these people had been together for so long. I'd hope that, if that really was something that she wanted to do, she wouldn't just plan some elaborate disappearance like this. I mean, and I don't understand why the authorities, one side, think that, that's really the case, especially when all the searches have been called off due to the weather. indefinitely, and so there's lots of the mountain that they haven't even searched. And with all that weather moving in, it's quite possible that she did have some kind of an accident, a fall or something like that. Now, again, obviously you can't rule out anything, and it's possible that maybe she did get into that town on the French side, and who knows, maybe she did go off. But I can't imagine, based on my research and what people say about her character, I just can't imagine her doing that to her family, and of course her mom. Her whole family is just so distraught over this. So I don't know, it seems a little bit far-fetched to me. Plus, it seemed like they had worked these kind of issues out, like for Miss Dingley had been traveling alone in the couple's caravan for a month while Mr. Colgate was staying at a French vineyard. So they had kind of worked around ways where one would do something while the other was resting and kind of taking it easy. Plus, they had been together for over 19 years. So it's really hard to say what happened in this case, but personally I believe it was some sort of accident or maybe foul play. But based on the evidence and the investigation, I don't believe Dan Colgate, her partner, was involved. And I mean, he just seems to be torn up about this, and obviously, I can't imagine, being on a trip like this and having a partner for 19 years and then all of a sudden one day they're just gone. So just to recap a little bit, Esther Dingley is a British hiker that went missing in the Pyrenees. She is considered an experienced hiker, and she went missing after she did not return from a solo trek as planned on November 25th, 2020. She last communicated with her partner, Dan Colgate, via WhatsApp on November 22nd when she was atop Pic de Sauvegarde on the Spain-France border. That was the last communication. Mr. Colgate said that we spoke every day prior to that time, and even when they were apart, and it was always joyful and happy. The only other information we have comes from Mr. Ballerin, who was the guy who gave her the ride, and he's a very experienced hiker, and he says the lakes in that area are very dangerous. And unfortunately, he fears the worst because it's just such a dangerous area. And he's haunted by the fact that he could be one of the last people to see her alive. This hike that she was taking was to be her last before driving back. And their last conversation was all loving and smiles. She was so happy, and she was very excited to come back and see him. Even Esther's mother, Ria, described her daughter as an open book and said while the couple may have faced some difficult decisions about continuing their touring, that didn't dampen her joy of life, and that they were both living. And Mr. Colgate said it was normal for the couple to spend time apart, but they also enjoyed their trips together, which included a 1,000-mile hike in the past summer. Personally, to me, that speaks of a healthy, open, honest relationship where they talked about each other's needs. Mrs. Dingley's family is now being supported by the LBT Global, formerly the Lucy Blackman Trust, which assists relatives of missing people abroad. Chief Executive Matthew Surreal called for a swift end to the speculation about what happened to Miss Dingley. He said, "Our priority is supporting Esther's loved ones through this traumatic time, and it's clear that they are deeply upset about some of the speculation. Spreading unconfirmed assumptions is unhelpful and unfair, as well as deeply upsetting for those closest to Esther." And I really agree with that. I mean, I really still can't believe that some of the authorities just kind of decided that, oh yeah, she just went off on her own. And there's just not enough evidence to point in any direction here. During the search dogs, helicopters, and drones over weeks searched all over the mountains and turned up no clues. And unfortunately, on Friday, December 4th, 2020, the searches were called off due to heavy weather and more snow predicted to come. And unfortunately, this is still a mystery to this day. A spokeswoman for the Spanish Civil Guard search team in Huesca province said that the search for Esther has been especially difficult as she did not tell anyone her exact route. So there's lots of vegetation in the area. People can fall in places that is almost impossible to see. So, I mean, that's kind of a big possibility, and probably the more probable possibility, unfortunately. Mr. Colgate has expressed his extreme gratefulness for the extensive efforts by both the French and Spanish rescue teams, and really just wants to find his partner. So in any event, that's about all the information I could find on this case, and hopefully there will be a positive outcome on this one. I ask that you please, if you choose to comment, please be respectful, and if you want further information, I'm going to leave all the sources in the description as always, and my thoughts and prayers go out to the Dingley family, and of course Mr. Colgate and all the search and rescue people, and just wishing all the best. And Esther, wherever you are, I hope you can find your way home soon. Thank you everybody for watching. Stay healthy and safe. Take care.